boil's done. 60 minutes is over. Turn that timer off.
3 minutes or so now.
Turn the burners off. Here we go. Open this up. Turn this on. Let this process happen, and we're going to get this down to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we'll transfer it over to the primary, and then we'll pitch the yeast and wait. What's happening now is this wort is actually getting down to 100 degrees. The water coming out of here is, you know, not warm anymore. It's probably, I don't know, less than 80 degrees. Okay, so we've transferred 5 gallons of wort over to this cooling kettle. Water coming out of here is pretty cold now. So if you look at this thermometer, temperature is about 67 degrees, so it's pretty much ready to transfer to primary fermenter. Looks like about 68 degrees. So it's pretty much ideal. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the transfer, and then we're going to add whatever's left in the boiling kettle. It doesn't look like there's a lot, but we want to make sure that we're getting probably 5.5 gallons into this primary. So primary has been sterilized. I decided to actually just put the rest of the hot wort into this cooling kettle because the temperature inside this kettle is now 60 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a little bit colder than I wanted, but it's not a big deal. So I'm just going to add a little bit more heat to this. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is actually, while this is filling up, I'm going to take this tube, squeeze it, and then fill up this tube. And then we're going to go over here and take a reading. So, I'm not sure what this is going to be, but pretty sure it's going to be over 10.60. And it is. It's above 10.8, closer to 10.9. Let's see what we have here. Looks like 10.9 on the dot. Although this is probably going to be around 9%. Final ABV. Potential really, I'm not going to hit potential on this one. Final gravity is going to be around 1020, somewhere around there. So hopefully when this is finished, it'll be around there. Alright, so now that we've done that, it's time to aerate the wort, which is basically introducing oxygen into the wort. So, you want to help, Regina? Yeah, so we're going to be doing this for the next 15 minutes.
Oh.
Alright, that's it. Continue to do this. Here we have our yeast, our harvested yeast, and we're now ready to pitch it because we've aerated the wort. Looks pretty aerated. It's got a lot of bubbles in there. So, take my sanitized funnel. Right there. What I'm going to do is kind of decant a lot of this beer out because we don't want to add that to the beer we're brewing. We just want to get the yeast on the bottom. Well, I think that's going to have to do. So that's 1.5 liters, a little bit less than 1.5 liters of yeast and leftover beer from that English stout. So what I'm going to do is just kind of swirl this around, get all the yeast up into that liquid so that they're suspended. So I don't want to have that cake kind of get stuck in the funnel. And then what I'm going to do is just pitch it in. Once this is done, what I'm going to do is actually put a blow-off tube on this one. So I've got the blow-off tube right here, and I've got a bucket here that has some sanitized water in it. That's going to be the blow-off tube. So we're going to transfer this over to my fermenting closet, and then put this blow-off tube on it. Put this end here, put the other end in this bucket, and then the CO2 and the other air that's in there can actually come out and go through the airlock, giant airlock. And that's it. We've made some Russian Imperial Stout. Well, it's a good thing I put this blow-off tube on this Russian Imperial Stout. I kind of had an idea that this would be a heavy top fermenting beer, just because the English ale yeast tends to be. But as you can see, this is 2 hours after pitching the yeast, and there's already some Kreuzen developing here, and fermentation has definitely begun. There's, you know, bubbling going on through the airlock. So I don't know if this is going to come out through and up through this blow-off tube, but and that's why it's there. So I probably pitched a lot more yeast than I really needed to, but I wanted to be sure. Okay, so this is the next day, probably 20 to 22 hours after we pitched the yeast. As you can see, this we did need the blow-off tube. I kind of figured that just because of this style of yeast. It went all the way up and probably looks like about down to here. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's fermenting like crazy, so that's good. You can kind of hear it just bubbling away. It's still going. I don't know how long it's gonna ferment this violently. I'll try to take a little bit more video. Thanks for watching.